Hello friends, welcome back to Ecocentric Homestead. Just going to give you a little update on the incubator here now. I've got 3 healthy chicks. I put in 18 eggs, but by candling them, I found that 8 of them were likely fertilized. The biggest eggs were not fertilized. This one's not fertilized. You can actually feel a difference in weight as well. This one here probably has a full-grown chick in it. I had 2 black chicks hatch out, and they didn't have enough strength to make it. They died a little while later. I had 1 try to hatch out, and it died in the shell. And then by candling, it looks like there's 2 more eggs that has chicks grown in it, but they didn't hatch. So the incubator is a success. I want to make a different platform to put them on other than this grate, because when they hatch out, of course, their feet fall down through. I do have an idea on what I'm going to make, and for 3 hens, this box is big enough to be a brooder until they get all their feathers, and then I'll put them out in the house of the chicken tractor, and then a little while later I'll open up the door so that they can go down on the ground, and come late fall, of course, I'll put them in the hen house. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go out along the cabin road again to get something that I realized I could get when I was out sifting the topsoil, and I want to get it right now to make the next thing I want to show you in the garden more clear. One of the things you'll find in an old forest, especially the boreal forest where you have a lot of softwoods, is rotten logs. Now this is somebody's old wood pile that they have discontinued use, and the last little bit was just left there to rot. But as the log rots, you can take it and crush it, and this is what you end up with. Of course, when you dry it, you can crush it even further. I need to collect some material for making potting mix and seed starting mix. But this can also be used if you had, say, a place like this where it's a lot of old rotten chunks of wood. Probably collect enough to mulch a bed or 2 in your garden. It would look not unlike what you would buy in the store, that bark mulch stuff. To be honest, I don't know why I'm breaking this all up here when I can take it home and break it up at home. Don't want any of the really hard stuff, you see. I just want stuff that I can break up into little small pieces. There's a lot of mosquitoes here. So that's one source of material if you're in the boreal forest, or I would assume any other older forest, to get material for making potting mix, seed starting mix, etc. This will hold a lot of water, and because it's well rotted already, it won't suck up very much moisture. When it really gets down, you got this stuff. That's basically just those chunks of wood that's rotted down. So that's that type of material that you can get easily from the forest. And now we'll go get the other one. The whole of the forest is underlain by a thick layer of humus, as you know. Any forest would be the same. In the boreal forest we have this thick layer of black humus. It's made mostly with sphagnum moss. So if I were to take the top layer, getting a little bit of soil in it, we'll show you now in a minute. If you were living anywhere near where there's a fourth access road, or like this, a new cabin road put in, you'll probably have access to just beside the road. Just go along and collect some. And that's what you'll sift out. It's mostly sphagnum moss and other dead roots. I'm going to see if I can fill up my bucket now among this stuff here. There's quite a bit. Now that we're back home, I'm going to sift what I collected out in the forest through my 1/4 inch mesh sifter. I'm going to start with the decomposed wood. This sifter now will help me break up the pieces that I was not able to break small when I was actually picking it apart out in the forest. Now I'll just throw those larger chunks there in that compost bin. So that's what I netted from collecting the rotten wood out in the forest. It will make a beautiful mulch, and I can mix it in with compost and other things for making potting mix too if I want. And now to sift out the humus. And that's the humus from the forest floor. Add some perlite and vermiculite to it, and you got yourself potting soil. The reason I went and got the forest floor humus now was because I wanted to lay it out here so that you can easily see the plants that I'm trying to point out to you. This is the fall planting test bed. I've got parsnip. This was my homegrown parsnip, which I didn't expect to come anyway. This was beets, carrots, turnip, and rutabaga, which once again I didn't expect to come because I knew the seed wasn't very good, if at all. So I'll bring you in for a close-up now. I planted these on November the 12th of last year. These are the parsnips. The hens got in here and rooted around. So the parsnip seed, I can't say what amount germinated, but I have 25 parsnip here. I knew there was another one, 26 parsnip, which will be plenty for me, I think. So fall planting of parsnip was a complete success. When we go along, like I say, the seed that was planted here was no good anyway. I planted beets here. I really didn't expect them to come because beets are a zone 7, I think, biennial. And so I wasn't expecting the seed to survive the winter either. So I was quite surprised when some of them did germinate as the weather began to warm up. And right now, I have them marked out with little spots of the humus that I just sifted out. And here's one there. This one is just a little tiny one. Another one, and I think that's 2 together right there. Now the thing about beets, my research has led me to understand that if you plant the seed in cold soil, it greatly reduces the chance that the root will swell up and you won't get a beet root, you'll just get top. So I'm waiting to see if these few beets that did germinate will actually swell up and give me a good beetroot. If it does, then I will try sowing them thickly next fall and see what happens. Carrots. They're here a little thinly, but I tried to sow them very thinly anyway. And I was coming from this side, and it was hard for me to reach way over the other side, so you see a little bit of a space right at the end. I think most of the seed here germinated, and this is the seed that I grew the previous year, and I knew that it had a high germination rate. So that was why I was trying to sow them thinly, because I really didn't want to have to thin them out. Complete success once again, sown on November the 12th, and they germinated when all the annual weeds start germinating. So you get these little annual weeds. And the thing about carrots, my only complaint with carrots for here, like I say, it's pretty much plant them and forget them if you can plant them thinly. But when they're really small, they're hard to see next to the little annual weeds. And so what happens is that your weeds grow up and overtop your carrots, and then you have a hard time the first time you go to weed out your carrots. And this way, they will germinate with the earliest of the annual weeds, and before a lot of them, so you'll get ahead of the weeding process. This is turnip purple top white globe. I don't know why it looks like I completely missed a row. The first 2 rows have germinated fairly well, and then that last row was like nothing. So did I just forget to do the last row? Now compare this to turnip that I planted as soon as I could this year. They're just barely coming up. You mightn't be able to see that one. This one here is big enough for you to see. They're just barely coming through the ground, the turnip that I planted, like I said, as soon as I could this year. And even the rutabaga, which are up a little better, as you can see, are just barely up. But my fall planted turnip are up nice and big. This bed here, if you remember a couple videos ago, I set the Chantenay type carrot in here. So I'm waiting for them to come up. They are actually coming up. And this, I'm thinking, might be a rutabaga, one of the very few seeds that was viable. If I had had good seed for rutabaga, it would have been up just as well as these turnip are. So my thinking on this little test I've done here is that it was a complete success for parsnips, carrot, turnip, and rutabaga. The turnip is coming up a little sparse, so I'm thinking that maybe sow it a little thicker than you would if you're sowing a spring sowing. But if it would work for turnip and rutabaga, then it may work for all of your brassicas, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and so on. Come this fall, I'm going to try that, and I will set out all of them the same as if I'm setting out rutabaga. 6 inches apart between the rows, but then just a string of seed along. And as the cabbage plants comes up, I'll just pick out every second one and use them as leafy green. The same way with broccoli and cauliflower, you can use the leaves. They're quite edible and taste pretty much like cabbage. The only thing that you have to be careful about is that you need to plant them late in the fall. So I planted them at November the 12th. The soil would have been cooled down by that time so that the seed wouldn't germinate. It would just sit there dormant all winter. If you plant them when the soil's still warm, you could end up with your seeds germinating and then it cools down and they die. I mentioned the beets. If they grow a bulb, then the thing about beets is that I can plant them in the fall. Seed is cheap. And if they do come up and survive, then I'm ahead of the game. A lot of times though, we get a warm period in the spring and then we get a frost. So I'm thinking that beets may germinate and then that frost kill them. Either way, I wouldn't be put behind with respect to growing, because if we get a late frost, then I just replant everything that was killed after the frost, and I'm no further behind. If, however, we don't get a killing frost, I'm ahead. So that's our experiment for next fall. I hope you found this interesting. It's a very exciting as far as I am concerned. Hit the like button if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video.